I really like her VTuber design. Like, it's not overly like fan servicey, but at the same time, it's still like pretty attractive. But it's also like has this cool like demeanor about it. I don't know. I think it's the hat. I fuck with the hat. Today we're gonna be reacting to a video about the #1 VTuber in the world.
Hosho Marin, the world's largest actor.
I want to start by saying I'm familiar with this VTuber. I don't watch them because I don't speak, Japanese, so it's hard for me to watch Japanese VTubers. I've seen clips that are translated, and from what I've seen, she seems pretty cool. So I wanted to learn more about her, and this video came across my timeline one day, so I had it saved. So you know what? I figured let's learn something about her. Why is she the #1 VTuber in the world?
The VTuber. This is her childhood dream.
絶対おっぱい大きくなるという目標がねずっとありましたので子供
You're in for a ride. Despite where she stands,
That's where that soundbite is from? Hold on, wait. I've heard this on so many streams before.
目標がねずっ
This
とありま
this
したので
thing right, watch.
you're in for a ride. Despite
The horny thing. I've heard that on so many VTuber streams before, and I'm like, what is that from? That's hilarious to me.
where
Wow,
she
what are the
stands
chances?
today, Marin, or Sencho as we call her, grew up in poverty. Her family so poor that she remembers not being able to afford snacks like chips and could only buy bread rolls. Her apartment was so run down and in the middle of nowhere that they'd be infested with insects.
I love hearing stories about this, like not stories of people being in shitty situations like that, but like people that have, they've managed to go from that to completely changing their life in some way or another and turning it around. Because in that type of situation, it's so easy to just give up, be depressed, and all that terrible shit. But to mentally, stay strong and figure shit out for however you do it, and then get out of that situation, like it's always an amazing thing to me. And I'm even more impressed that she was able to use VTubing as a way to do that. Like, VTubing is such a wonderful thing. It's so cool. I don't care how many people outside of VTubing think VTubing is cringe or whatever their opinions on it. I think it's a wonderful fucking thing. I think it's a really fun way to make content. And I'm so glad so many people have been able to use it to change their lives. And it's given an opportunity to so many people. This shit is fire to me.
Even as a child, she lived so hungry that one time she tried eating the Street Fighter paper manual.
That's fucking insane. Could you imagine being so fucking broke and your family just so poor at a point where like you start eating paper? Like, I've heard of like, fucking syrup sandwiches type shit. Like, I know people heard that in like a Kendrick Lamar song or whatever, but that's real shit. That's it's not just for the sake of the song. That's real shit, man.
Even McDonald's was too expensive for their family. The details of her full family are unclear, but she mentions not having a mother, growing up with just her sister and father.
God damn,
Even
that's tough.
so, her dad seemed to do an amazing job because even under these harsh conditions, she had never once considered herself to be unlucky or unhappy. And
Shout out to having a fucking solid ass family, bro. Like, I don't care if you only got one parent or whatever the case may be. If you got a solid family that's like really fucking with you and you're in that type of situation, yo, that shit is a blessing. Because not everybody has that. So many people do not have that. Like, this is kind of off topic, but there's so many people out there, like, as soon as they turn 16, as soon as they turn like 17, 18 and graduate high school, their parents kick them out the fucking house and like figure it out. And that's all right, I guess, but a lot of these parents they don't treat their kid, they don't raise their kids by 18 to know how to fend for themselves in the wild. They just think, oh, I was 18 and when I got kicked out, so I'm gonna kick my kid out and figure out how to do it. If you have a family that doesn't mind you staying with them, and they actually, you're contributing to the household, of course, and they actually love and help you and care about you, cherish that shit, man. Because I promise you, there's so many people out there that wish that they had that.
we see in clips that to this day, she is very close to both of them, with insane stories like her dad seducing her previous boss, messaging her like a classic Oji-san. But anyway, most likely due to poverty, Sencho never went to university and directly entered the workforce right after high school.
That's like the story for so many people, man. This shit sucks.
And if you know anything about Japan's work culture, then you may have heard of black companies.
I hear that Japan's work culture, like, I could never live in Japan. Like, Japan seems cool. I'm sure I want to visit one day, but I don't think I could ever live in Japan. Like, the culture would just be too much of a difference for me personally. And it's not just, I'm also like black, like that is also another thing I have to like, not to go into that, conversation right now, but just as a black person, we have to be a little bit more careful about where we travel to. Like we can't just go anywhere. We don't have that luxury of just going anywhere and being cool. We have to really research places. But anyway, I could never live in Japan simply because like the work culture is crazy. Like it can be bad in America, but the way the stories I hear how it is in Japan is like I couldn't deal with that shit, man.
Companies that
And especially as an outsider, it's got to be even worse.
work the hell out of employees with little compensation and are in legal gray areas. Marin unfortunately worked in one, perhaps not knowing, perhaps having no choice, and it was brutal. She has memories of working overtime past midnight, not being able to take time off even when she got the flu or got injured, and
Damn, I thought I had some terrible fucking memories from jobs that I worked. I feel like everyone has shitty stories of jobs they work, but I don't know, man. See, that's the thing. Like, at least in America, if I'm in that situation, I can find another job or just like, I don't know, just say, I'm not fucking, excuse me, I'm not doing this. I'm not staying past 12 and not get, be in that situation. But I feel like in her situation, you can't do it. Or if you are in that situation, you can't just be like, I'm not gonna work, then you're not gonna eat. So that shit sucks.
one time, instead of a performance bonus, they gave her Mandarin oranges as a
That's
bonus.
insane.
Except the Mandarin oranges were rotting. The breaking point was when the CEO called everyone in her department in for a meeting and called everyone replaceable, saying anyone could do their work. See, the reason Marin stayed at the company for so long was because even under those conditions, she still had a sense of purpose. People in her department called her essential to the company's functioning. But after that line from the CEO, she was done. Marin
That's a trap. When you're working and people start trying in like the bosses or whatever in that environment, they start, trying to shower you and give you praise and be like, oh, you're so valuable to the company and shit like that. Or they use that line, we're a family here. That's a red flag because you are replaceable to a lot of these companies. As long as you're valuable, they'll say those things. But the minute they find somebody better or it turns out they don't need you anymore, they will fire your ass. So never fall for that shit, man.
resigned and never looked back. Perhaps it's somehow due to this asshole CEO that we have Senjo today. Senjo applied for HoloLive, quoting that she
I'm sure she probably can't say, but I'm very curious as to what that company was and what they did.
wanted a platform to use her diverse skill set, and VTubing would be perfect for that. She specifically chose HoloLive, being fans of Fubuki and Minato Aqua. Successfully passing the audition, she debuted as Hosho Marin in
It's so crazy to me that there was a time in the VTubing space where the majority of people were you would have to apply to things like this to be a VTuber. Like, you couldn't just be a VTuber. I'm so glad we're at the point where it's way more accessible for everyday people, man.
2019 August and never looked back. Despite her reputation today, Marin was understandably very nervous on her debut stream, still trying to act cute and idol-like.
ですね、そう、私、船長なんですけども。
But that all went out the window with Yago's dreams very soon. Marin was known for being horny. Seriously, Marin is probably the one that talks about sex and sexual topics by far the most in HoloLive.
I wonder if this is just how she genuinely is, or if it's just clip farming. It's always hard to tell what part of a content creator in general is real and what is just them putting on an act. And I'm not no shade to nobody. You know what I mean? I have no problem with people putting on an act when it comes to content creation, because I think for the most part that's the whole point of content creation, is to entertain people. And I think most people, they know that the person they're watching on the screen, that may not be 100% a representation of who they are. So this stuff is always fascinating to me when you watch a VTuber and they act a certain way on stream.
It's literally become a part of her identity. Her music is horny, her streams
Why is that censored? It looked like she's just wearing a bikini.
are horny, and she even achieved her childhood dreams of growing big boobs. Yet somehow, Marin has this amazing dynamic with her chat, where it's almost as if chat doesn't want to lust for Marin because Marin is so desperate, literally asking for it. Or
That's pretty smart how she's doing that. I fuck with that. There's actually a couple of VTubers that I've seen that type of dynamic as well, where the female VTuber is super horny or whatever and is making these things, and then the chat is it's a fun dynamic. It's I don't want to say it's better than your alternative, but it's just nice that there's different dynamics, I guess, in this space between the VTubers and in the chat. I feel like this would be a little bit better or preferable than having a super parasocial obsessive chat. I don't know, man.
sarcastically asking if they want it. It's usually the opposite dynamic with VTubers, where the fans are lusting over the pretend-to-be girlfriend VTuber. So Marin's unique position with her fans makes the banter so funny to watch.
やっぱそうなんじゃん。あ、ピチピチの方が好きなんじゃん。
Obviously, the banter is all sarcasm, but I think it reflects one of Marin's greatest strengths, talking. See, one of Marin's old jobs was customer service, and that combined with toxic corporate culture.
That's something I say all the time. I think a lot of people should work retail as their first jobs because I was a pretty quiet person, in high school. And it wasn't until after I graduated and I started working that working in retail, positions that I was forced to come out of my comfort zone and get comfortable around talking to people because you have no choice, right? And I think people underestimate how much of a skill being able to talk to people is rather. Like I see people say things like, "Oh, I hate small talk. Small talk is so pointless." But in reality, being able to have small talk with strangers and go up to strangers and talk to them is a very valuable life skill. Not just in like a corporate world, but like also making friends, building relationships, all that stuff. So anybody, if you're one of those people who say, "I hate small talk and I can't do it," I recommend trying to learn how to actually have that type of, skill because it's one of the most valuable skills you can have in life, in my opinion.
Really made her a good yapper. She talks so fast, even Japanese listeners sometimes struggle to keep up with her.
教えてくれるよね。それはネタバレじゃないもんね。一回見たけどマリンが忘れただけだからそれはネタバレに該当しないよね。
But more than that, she's just a natural at entertaining. She's the clown when she needs to be. She doubles down on things if she believes, and scolds chat, which they seem to enjoy. But beyond that charisma also lies insane creativity. Like, just look at her content. Yago memes.
Yeah, I've seen some pretty cool like clips of her doing cool shit. This is one of the main reasons I even want to watch this video. Like I said, I can't really watch the Japanese, streams that don't speak Japanese. So it's nice to have like a little bit of background and stuff like that.
Censored, engaging with the English community. Memes.
The DNA of the soul.
I swear, she is clip farm material. And the amount of collabs with not just her gen mates, but other big VTubers,
This image is fucking funny, bro. The tentacles, bro. What are we doing?
including Niji Sanji, she did. Yeah, she was blowing up and she fully deserved it. She worked so hard. As her income presumably blew the hell up, Sencho started looking for a better place to live in because she was still living in that rundown poverty apartment. She was literally streaming in a cramped room crouching. But this house search turned out to be a disaster. Only about 2 to 3 months.
I also like the idea of, like I said earlier, being able to do content creation or VTubing and change your life and be able to take care of your family. That's also, it's just an amazing thing because in a world where people are fucking struggling right now to even find a job, it's nice that there's alternatives.
After debut, Sencho started house searching, and after some vetting, she thought she found a decent place and planned to move in January 2020. She had completed all the torturous Japanese paperwork bureaucracy procedures and even had a moving company arranged, plus line installations for better internet at her new place, something now essential to her career. But suddenly, randomly, the landlord of the new place refused the internet line installation, meaning Sencho suddenly had to find a new place. On a timer too, since she had already informed the old place.
Damn, that sucks. I've been in a situation similar like that. Not the fact that, they wouldn't install good internet, but I've been in a similar situation to that. I don't want to get into it, but it fucking sucks. It's like one of the most stressful fucking things you can do in the world, especially if you don't have a lot of money and you already spent your money and it's already planned to move into this place and you spend it on a moving company and everything. That is one of the most stressful situations you can go through in your life, man. That shit sucks. So I feel for that, man.
Of a specific move-out date, less than a month later in February. Keep in mind, this was all going on when there was a pretty big Hololive concert she had to perform in coming up. Both Sencho and the house agency in a panic, they somehow managed to find a new place and planned to move on February 10th. But on the morning of February 10th, Marin had to wake up at 5:30 a.m. for the move, and after taking her final shower at the old apartment, found the drain clogged and was charged for it. The final morning, bro.
I know she was stressed the fuck out, bro. And then on top of that, she's doing the whole Hololive shit too as well. They just said, like, I couldn't imagine, man.
And then, when she finally got to her new place, Sento arrived to find that the key to the front door would not open, leaving her having to wait at the front door for an hour, exhausted, before management finally came to help. And when she finally got into the apartment, she found that the internet lines hadn't even been installed, despite the promises of a very strong internet connection.
Man, moving fucking sucks in general, man. It's always one thing. If it's not one thing, it's always something else when you're moving. Like I've never been in a situation where I moved and everything's gone perfect and there's been no issues. It sucks.
She tried streaming with her mobile data, but it was abysmal connection speed, so she gave up and just rented a studio for streaming for the time being. This moving was literally anything that could go wrong went wrong.
At least she has, had the resources to actually have alternatives. Imagine going through that and you, like I said, you spent all of the money you had planned for this and then you can't do anything else. That sucks.
Despite all this chaos, Sinjo never stopped creating top quality content and streams. Her channel
You gotta admire the drive, man. Like when it comes to content creation, shit sucks a lot of the time. You're not gonna be able. Not every video is gonna do great. Sometimes you can't even do it full time because you gotta pay bills. So you're working a full time job and you gotta do it on the side. And one of the most important things you can have as a content creator is having the drive to be able to make content, even on those days you don't feel like you want to, or even at the times where you feel like you don't have enough time. You really you gotta fucking go all in sometimes. If you want to make it like a full time thing and you're not just doing it as a hobby.
growing. With the viral release of her first original song, Ahoy! In June 2020, Sinjo reached 1 million subscribers in 2021 January, just 1.5 years after debut, and the 6th member in Hololive to achieve this milestone. Just a look at any of her streams is enough to tell you how engaged her chat is with her antics, and what a natural entertainer she was. Unfortunately, here is when another few hiccups along the way would form. For obvious reasons, Sinjo's channel was always fighting with demonetization, but in July,
Yeah, that's the issue when you make that type of content and you make that type of jokes. You always, because YouTube is definitely fucking weird about certain things. And if they don't like what you're making, you're getting demonetized, unfortunately. But honestly, I think YouTube is a lot less strict than a lot of other platforms. At least in my experience, I think a lot of other platforms are way more strict when it comes to certain types of content. And for the most part, I think YouTube is the best platform to make content and be monetized on. At least, like, that's just my opinion.
YouTube randomly decided to ban her entire channel. Like, entire channel randomly terminated. Had the lewdness finally gone too...
That's like one of my biggest nightmares. Imagine like grinding for years and you finally get your YouTube channel off the ground and it's doing well, and then just out of nowhere you get banned on YouTube. I've seen that happen to so many creators. That is like one of my biggest like nightmares. I stress out just thinking about that type of shit. And I'm not even anywhere, at that size. So I couldn't imagine how much that would fucking suck to hit 1 million subscribers and then have that happen.
Far for YouTube?
The only good thing about that is at least at that point you're well known and you can pivot somewhere else. As difficult as that would be, at least you're not completely starting from zero.
Fans questioned, but a click on her channel showed that it was terminated for fraud, spam, and misleading content.
That's the shit I'm talking about, because you can get your YouTube channel like demonetized or whatever just from someone deciding to wake up and being an asshole and like reporting you for just false shit. And it's just like, come on, man, we need actual people to actually review these accusations.
By YouTube's automatic AI system. I swear YouTube needs to fucking stop doing this. Thankfully, YouTube quickly checked and confirmed it was a false positive, restoring her channel. Probably because she was a big channel under a company. But then just a month later, because Sinjo yaps so...
That's also another thing. If you don't have like, the company or have that much pull, like I've seen people struggle to actually get their channel reinstated because, they're just one person. That shit sucks.
Much on stream and was unconsciously trying to use that cutesy voice, Sinjo announced that she would be severely decreasing the frequency of streams as she was suffering from pretty bad throat strain. But this reduction didn't help much because in September, doctors found not just vocal cord nodules, but even internal bleeding in her vocal cord.
That's why I don't like do a fake voice, Obviously, like I'm not a female VTuber, so I don't necessarily have to. But I know there's a lot of people out there that do put on an act with their voice when they make content as a VTuber. And just the thought of doing that, I don't know, like I can feel the pain, you know what I mean? Like when I'm recording videos, sometimes I record multiple videos in one day when I have the time, and by the time I'm done with that, using my regular voice, I don't feel like talking, and I can feel my my voice kind of like need a break. So being able to or having to put on a fake voice while recording or while streaming multiple hours a day, like I couldn't imagine doing that.
Forcing her to take a break. She came back a little over a month later, focusing on voice therapy, and since then, she seems to have been more careful.
Also, I haven't said this yet, but I really like her VTuber design. Like, it's not overly like fan servicey, but at the same time, it's still like pretty attractive. But it's also like has this cool like demeanor about it. I don't know.
And hasn't had huge throat issues
I think it's the hat. I fuck with the hat.
since then. You know, you see Central's clips and streams and thumbnails and you think, wow, that's a crazy ass girl. And then I do research for this video, hearing everything she's been through, and I'm like, wow, that's a crazy ass backstory. But I feel like that's shaped why Central has become so popular and the way she is.
People love an underdog story, like I said in the beginning. It's relatable. They like seeing people go from having nothing to being on top of the world. It's just that hope.
While batshit crazy, horny, memeable, clippable on the outside, even multi-talented, good at both singing and drawing, if you stay for her yapping and talking streams, or pay attention to some small moments, you can really tell that
I think the coolest thing about being a super successful VTuber is having the resources to have like high quality animations made for your VTuber model. Like the idea of coming up with your own VTuber model and then seeing it animated in such a way, like I don't know, there's something really sick about it. Like if I ever get to the size where I'm making a good amount of money from this, I know for a fact a lot of that money is gonna go towards making stupid animations for no reason, just because I want to see it.
as a person, she gives amazing life advice based on her torturous corporate life, and especially during collabs, you can
That's some of like this advice right here. Don't torture yourself by comparing yourself to others. That is like the most important thing when it comes to content creation too. Like being, especially if you're just starting out and you are a small VTuber, constantly looking at the bigger VTubers and comparing yourself to them and be like, man, I gotta do this, I gotta do that because they're doing that. It's like the number one way to kill your motivation and make you not even want to make content anymore.
life advice based on her torturous corporate life, and especially during collabs, you can tell how she secretly takes care of everyone's emotions, how she pivots if she senses someone start to feel uncomfortable. Hell, I think the fact that an extrovert like her managed to adopt the notoriously socially anxious Aquatan and build a genuine relationship upon that says a lot about her people skills. Her unhinged streams with Coco, her cheating with Rusia, even despite everything she's been through, she still is able to form these genuine bonds with her co-workers. No, not co-workers, friends. Many may love her for her crazy entertainment, but I think the secret behind her success is compassion for both people and her VTubing career. The way she
Like I said, having great people skills is a very important skill to have when it comes to content creation. So if you're out there and you're one of those people that are shy and you want to be a content creator, the best advice or the best thing you could do for yourself is definitely try to put yourself out there more and try to be more social with people because it'll help leaps and bounds with your content.
cares for both her fellow VTubers and fans. The way she spends God knows how much money on her music MVs. They have more frames than
Like, look at this. This shit looks insane. This looks like something you would like an anime. This is like high quality, anime right here. Like the animation is crazy. I can only imagine how much it cost.
entire seasons of anime combined. No, seriously, I have to show this a bit. The MVs look insane.
But you also have to keep in mind there's a difference between putting money towards one music video project and an entire series of like an anime. So like let's not go too far here.
They deserve all the views they get. It's like a trademark Central thing. Throw an ungodly amount of money to make the highest quality MVs possible. She could save the money, but no, she just throws everything. Besides,
Well, I think that's also another thing. Like, it's important. Animations and lore and all that type of stuff is a real big part of like the VTubing space. As like, it's just it's part of the culture. So being able to have the money to do something like that really is a blessing.
Besides that, she's not afraid to just yap about things, opinions. She folds or fights back when she wants, banters with chat. It's just, you can tell Central loves VTubing. You can tell that she is just a person. It's not all sunshines, even in this job. She's talked about being depressed before, although she didn't deep dive as she didn't want to bring the stream's mood down.
Name me a content creator that wasn't depressed at one point. Getting out the trenches as a content creator, listen, at some point you are going to be depressed, maybe multiple times.
But after that, she literally gets back up and just forgets why she was even depressed. Hell, she herself said that despite how good of a job she has at Hololive, it's actually more stressful than her toxic corporate life because
Yeah, because it's like you have so much more you're responsible for. You have all these people watching you. You have to be careful with what you say, what you do, how you act. There's a lot going on as opposed to just going in and clocking in a job and get berated by your boss and then leaving. You know what I mean?
at her old job, she just had to repeat what she did every day. She didn't have to think
Exactly.
about what to do.
Coming up with ideas as well on top of editing. Maybe, she probably doesn't edit her, her stuff anymore. But it's a lot. So I understand where she's coming from, to be honest with you.
Unlike being a VTuber where you really have to think creatively on what you want to do. And given all the shit she's been through, Senjo's positivity is impressive. Growing up in poverty, being exploited in a black company, I can't believe she still has the positive and humble attitude given where she is today. But maybe this is an important lesson to learn. Stay positive, stay compassionate, and just be a good person. In 2024, Marin held her first
Obviously, there's such thing as, the whole toxic positivity thing. That's a real thing. But I think that's a very good point to make. Like, life is gonna suck for a lot of people in a lot of ways. It's just that's life. But at the same time, life is beautiful. This sounds so cheesy, but it's true. Life is beautiful. There's a lot of great moments that happens in everybody's life. So it makes more sense, mentally speaking, to focus on the great things and try to stay positive as much as possible, even though it's impossible to say positive 100% of the time. You know what I mean? Bad days happen. But that's a very good point this person just made.
ever solo live in front of an audience of 40,000. And last year, she became the second VTuber in history to hit 4 million subscribers.
Damn, that's crazy.
Since Gaogura has graduated, Marin has effectively become the #1 active VTuber in the world and directly told Yago, the CEO, that she is aiming for 5 million. Her story from poverty to exploited employees.
That's so insane. Imagine having 5 million people subscribe to your YouTube channel. Like, I can't even fathom that. I don't even know, man. Imagine that's when people say there's so much luck involved in VTubing or just in content creation. I think you get to a point where when you have a certain amount of subscribers, it's almost like a snowball effect. It just keeps growing. I think the hardest part is getting to that first milestone and then being able to grow from there. But even still, 4 million people subscribe to the channel. That's insane. I think it's something like if you hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, you're already in the top 10% of creators or something like that.
To #1 in the world is seriously inspiring. I'm so glad Sencho found her calling. I hope Sencho continues to be Sencho, and I hope that we can all learn to be more positive and compassionate like her.
This is a really good video. Like I said, I don't get a chance to watch the streams because I don't speak Japanese, so it's nice to have more background on this creator. Maybe I'll try to check out more of her streams, but it's just hard for me because I don't feel like I am 100% in the streams, you know what I mean? But anyway, I'm going to leave a link to the original video if you want to check out more content from this creator. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.